Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Well, Tony, it was going great. And then I checked the forecast for Saturday, and now it's about a 50% chance of not going great. So, Tony, how are you?
Well, like I just told you before the show, all week long my computer was still on Evanston weather. So the weather was looking just fine, ironically. And then it was this morning when I realized I'd heard people talking about, it's going to be raining during the game. And it's like, not according to what I'm seeing. I'm seeing, decent weather and 50s or something like that. And then, of course, you refresh your location and boom, like 37, 38, 40 degrees at kickoff with rain and possibilities of snow at some point. But we have seen other games against Indiana with some snow. A couple of years ago, I think, maybe in 2018, there was some snow in that one as well.
In 2014, that was the game where there was like an ice storm overnight and snow on the field at the beginning of the game. And that was the Jalen Marshall game where he had 4 touchdowns in the second half. So that one ended up working out okay for Ohio State. But yeah, this is, we are you're in November. And once you get in November, it's just kind of spin the wheel. And sometimes it's going to be 65 degrees and sunny. And sometimes it's going to be snowing. And sometimes it's going to be raining in 38. And I'm going to be wishing I'm, had like one of those like big portable thing, like the portable soccer mom things, like the big, you know what, Tony, maybe I can steal one of the big bubbles that they use for the knocker ball thing. And, wear that on my head or something. Maybe that's the way to go. What do you think?
That's a pretty good idea. I don't know how the pictures would turn out. A little blurry or...
Blurry because I'm constantly getting knocked sideways while trying to take pictures. Yeah, that seems like a possibility.
Just pictures of your feet and the sky. But I mean, I'm willing to try it.
Yeah. I mean, listen, man. Anything to not be out in the 39-degree rain tomorrow. I think that's. I think I'm willing to explore some options.
But Tom, maybe you're just soft. Maybe you can't handle the elements. Maybe you are the human epitome of Ohio State. Tom, what do you think about that?
Well, we talk about toughness all the time on this podcast and the importance of toughness. So I'm sure that can't possibly be true. So, any other theories?
And again, as long as you talk about it, that's what you are. And toughness is obviously going to come into play against Michigan and even really against Indiana this week, because I know everybody says, it's Indiana. They're 3-6. They're 1-6 in Big Ten play. But if you look at what they're able to do against the run, they've actually been fairly decent. They're towards the bottom in like yards allowed, rushing yards allowed, but I think they're like 6th in yards per carry defense in the Big Ten. And they've held Michigan to their season low total of 165 yards rushing. They did that on 40 attempts, so you're talking 4 yards a carry. Held Maryland to 4.3 yards per carry. Held Penn State to 3.65 yards per carry. I mean, they held Cincinnati to 40 yards rushing on 30 attempts back in September. And even holding Illinois to 4 yards a carry, 54 attempts, 216 yards. But the consistency there of 4 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, well below what those teams are averaging against everybody else, tells you that this is an Indiana defense that is, they will sell out to stop the run, and which they did against Michigan, and they've got some ability there. So Ohio State, yeah, they're going to have maybe a little bit more freedom, but it's not just going to be an easy thing running the ball. So I guess if they do run the ball a little bit or a lot against Indiana, it's somewhat meaningful. But I know we've already said that no matter what they do against Indiana has no meaning because it's not Michigan. But it will be interesting to see if they can do better than the other teams have done in terms of yards per carry.
Yeah, this is not a good Indiana team in a lot of areas, but if they can somehow take advantage of the rush defense, which is the one spot, it's kind of like the one shining spot, shining area of some success this year for them, that would be a little bit meaningful to me. I don't think that's going to be Ohio State rushes for 5 yards per carry, and everyone in Columbus says, and they're going to beat Michigan now. Like, I don't know if it's that much, but I think it's at least, maybe the rush offense is not as broken, or maybe the issues affecting the rush offense have sort of started to be addressed, if you see that. But this is going to be a little bit more of a test with the weather now. I think I came in and when I made my game prediction, I was assuming, okay, it's going to be decent and it's going to be, it'll be 40, but it's going to be, there was no wind and I didn't think there was rain in the forecast. So I picked it to win by a bunch, but that was based on the fact that Indiana's pass defense is terrible. So, okay, how well can Ohio State throw the ball if it's raining in 40 degrees, but not windy? Like this is an offense that you would think hopefully raining in 40 degrees, you can still operate the passing game reasonably efficiently. Because if you can't, then it's probably time to overhaul things. Because it's, if you can't be a pass-based offense, if it doesn't work in the wind and it doesn't work in the cold and it doesn't work in the rain and it doesn't work in the snow, because it's like you've got to be the U.S. Postal Service. You've got to neither rain nor snow nor dark of night, just be able to move the ball. If it doesn't work in rain and snow and wind and cold, you're going to have to find another conference or move Ohio State to somewhere further south. Can the Ohio State football program be a bunch of snowbirds? I guess is my question. What do you think?
So you're in Ohio from say May to what?
Mid-October at least, yeah.
Okay, and then all November home games are played in Tampa Stadium, somewhere like Raymond James or something like that. You move to the Ohio of Florida. That would be Jacksonville.
I think there's a lot of people in Ohio who are right now saying, "Sir, are you familiar with the state of South Carolina?" Because I think I'm the only person in Ohio who has not been to Hilton Head in their life. So it's like Hilton Head and Euchre are the two Ohio things that I have not really ever taken on since moving to the state. But Myrtle, yeah, Myrtle. That's a maybe you could do spring ball up in Ohio. Maybe you start spring ball down there. It's and then by the time spring break is over, okay, then you move back up to Ohio and you play your spring game in Ohio, and then try and front load your schedule. Maybe think about that. Front load your home games in Ohio Stadium. Your first 8 games are all in Ohio Stadium, and then November, boom, hit the road and play an SEC schedule in the last month of the year. Because hey, then you get to play a SoCon team the next to last week. So I think this is working out. I think we might be onto something.
That's true, but then you might have to move one game a year because of a hurricane. So Ohio State will have to move a home game up to Ann Arbor because of a hurricane, something like that. And now Michigan gets to play 2 or 3 games in a row at home, and that's not fair. So think about this, Tom. Rethink it, and we'll figure out the logistics.
Finally, a flaw in our otherwise brilliant plan.
The weather is interesting to me because obviously, that's what we talk about every single week, no matter the game or no matter fall or not. It's will there be rain? Because people do want this Ohio State offense to be full go, to be able to do whatever they want whenever they want it, and that once you start getting the elements in there, that clouds some things, literally and figuratively, Tom. But having that game last week, this isn't going to be as bad as last week. So they've already gone through the Northwestern thing. Now this will just be this is, I'm sure, a piece of cake considering what they had to deal with last week. I'm sure CJ Stroud would love to have had very little wind, maybe 15-mile-per-hour wind and rain and a little bit of chill, as opposed to what they were dealing with last week. So even if there are conditions this week, they did a really good job of handling the football and protecting the football. They need to keep that portion of it as well. But now there should be some increased execution in this one because it can't be as bad as last week.
Yeah, you should be able to get at least a functional passing attack this week. Because if it's not super windy, it doesn't, it's the 50% chance of rain in any given hour. 50% chance of rain means, let me put on my meteorologist hat. It means in any given hour, there is a 50% chance of rain falling in this area. So that means its odds are not going to be a steady monsoon. Otherwise, it would be, 90 or 100% if it was just a constant wall of rain that was coming for 4 straight hours. So this is not going to be probably a extended monsoon. You could have heavy rains for a period, but not for 4 straight hours. Unless the weathermen are wrong, Tony, which, has that ever happened?
No, Tom, don't even put that out there. Don't even. I'm disappointed in you. And really, the 50% thing. It's like, yes, there's a 50% chance it's going to be in this area, which means it's a yes or no thing on a 50%, which makes it a 25% equation. Basically, it's 50% yes that it could rain, and it's 50% that it could be in this area. So you're talking 25% now as you get down to that. So by that point, the sun is already out. So that's good news for the Buckeyes. It's an interesting thing that Ohio State has to deal with, and any Big Ten team that wants to compete for a national title, which is just Ohio State. You have to deal with playing in the Big Ten and those conditions, but you also have to have an offense and a defense that can contend with the best teams in the nation. Ohio State is perhaps more suited for an Alabama or a USC or Oregon than a Michigan. And whereas Michigan is more suited for an Ohio State than a Georgia, an Alabama, USC or TCU. Not TCU. They'd be fine against TCU. But Michigan is more focused on the Big Ten. Ohio State, having won the Big Ten for so long and wanting more, you have to serve two masters in a sense. And last year they weren't able to do that. This year they're trying, and we'll see.
Well, what's interesting is if Michigan beats Ohio State and both teams get in, I would put Ohio State. I am really going back and forth on who's going to win the Ohio State-Michigan game this year. I don't think I would be going back and forth at all on who would win an Ohio State-Michigan game in Phoenix or in Atlanta or in the national championship game in Los Angeles. I think you get on a fast, dry track. I think at that point it becomes advantage Ohio State. But, with the uncertainty of what are you going to face in Columbus in 2 weeks, that makes it much more of a question to me as far as who would be able to win that game. So, yeah, it is almost like a mutually assured destruction thing where, Michigan is better suited to beat Ohio State and knock Ohio State out of the playoffs, whereas Ohio State is better suited to succeed in the playoffs. Michigan is not really necessarily suited to succeed in the playoffs. But, so it's like Michigan beats Ohio State, knocks Ohio State out, and it's the worst of both worlds, and then Michigan gets drubbed by Georgia last year. So, yeah, and I don't know that Ohio State would have done substantially better against Georgia, at least not on defense. They might have scored more and made it more interesting, but it was that was like the worst of both worlds for the Big Ten. I think you could very easily see I think the challenge for Ryan Day is exactly what you said, like the two completely separate environments that you have to operate in, and striking that balance between, you can tell that's what he's trying to do, because, the toughness thing, that's you have to win in the trenches, you have to be able to, you have to be able to run the ball when you want to, but also you don't win national championships by running the ball. Like that's not how anyone has won national championships recently. It's good defense, and you got to be able to throw the ball and put up 35, 40 points in that championship game. That's just kind of how the game is played now. So, Day has very clearly constructed it with national championship in mind, and it's just a matter of can he get over the Michigan hurdle in the bad weather potentially to get to that stage. Because once you get to the Big Ten championship game, it feels like it's advantage Ohio State moving forward there.
Yeah, you have designs for the final boss, but you have to get to the final boss to be able to defeat him. And if you don't, and you're not set up to defeat the underbosses, then, but you figure like if the thing is, it's like if you're good enough to defeat that final boss, you figure we're good enough to defeat all of the bosses along the way. It may not be pretty. It may not be ideal. It may not be right in our wheelhouse, but you should be able to get that done. And as it relates to Indiana, getting back to Indiana, I guess a little bit, they give up more passing yards than anybody else in the Big Ten. They are second worst in pass efficiency. They have given up 21 touchdowns, which is the most in the Big Ten. They have only intercepted 6 passes, which is third fewest in the Big Ten. And there is every reason to expect Ohio State will throw the ball. And now I wonder a little bit, how much, and I haven't watched enough Indiana, I haven't watched much Indiana since the Michigan game, how much of the passing yards and how much of the rushing yards, the low rushing totals, are because it's easy enough to pass on Indiana, and also how much of their yards per carry are skewed because a lot of these yards, a lot of these attempts are in the fourth quarter when Indiana's down by 3 touchdowns and the opponent is running the ball and Indiana knows it. And so I think there's some ability to get put some hay in the barn, if you will, in the first half.
Yeah, it feels like this is a team that Ohio State should be able to take advantage of. That, a team that plays great pass defense and iffy rush defense, that's a team that you could see Ohio State struggling against. A team, this feels like a little bit like a Michigan State last year, where a team with a bad pass defense, Ohio State is built to just torch that team. And, here's Indiana's averages. They're giving up 3.6 yards per carry, which is okay as a running defense. That's not amazing, but it's pretty good. 7.73 yards per attempt, 12.0 attempt yards per catch, and 264 yards per game. 21 passing touchdowns, 6 interceptions. It's not great. If you have a more than 3 to 1 touchdown to interception ratio, and you're playing in the Big Ten, I mean, their schedule is Illinois, Idaho, Western Kentucky. That's a passing offense. At Cincinnati, at Nebraska, Michigan, Maryland, at Rutgers, Penn State. Western Kentucky is the best passing offense potentially on that schedule, and they're still getting torched. This to me feels like it could be a name your score kind of game for Ohio State. Tony, while you were talking there, I was pulling up the long range forecast because we're only 15 days out, so this is going to be highly, highly accurate. Forecast for Columbus, Ohio on the 26th, 48 degrees and cloudy, high of 48. Now, rain and 50 on the 27th, cloudy and 48 on the 25th. So it seems, go ahead and put that in stone because weather forecast 14 days out. This is beyond even the 10-day. You have to go to a special place to find the 14-day forecast. So I have done that for you. And go ahead and place your bets accordingly because nothing can possibly change in the next 14 days.
Yes, Tom going to the dark web for the extra 4 days.
Had to use the Tor browser to get to this forecast. Yes.
And basically all it tells us is that it's going to look a lot like Michigan and Ohio State looks in November. 48 and cloudy is basically the dictionary definition of that game. It's just that sounds perfect to me, honestly. 48, especially you, the photographer, you want those clouds. Mm-hmm. And 48 is not cold. It's fine. And then, clouds aren't weather. They're just shielding the sun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And boy, I'm just thinking back, how many sunny Ohio State, Michigan games have there been over the years? And I can remember a few, but it just feels like spiritually, if it's not just the slate gray skies and the cold winds of the Midwest blowing through the greatest route, you can hear Keith Jackson doing all the stuff. That's exactly what that game deserves. Tony, we're still supposed to be talking about Indiana. Please try and stay focused.
Well, one other thing back to the Michigan thing, because you brought it up, Tom. I don't even want to talk about this, but has there ever been a sunny day? I do remember in 1994, which was my freshman year, and I think I've said this on the show before, but we were able to wear shorts to every game that year because the weather was nice. I don't know if it was sunny or if it was just warm. Now, I do remember in 95, it was really freaking cold in Ann Arbor, and I think the sun may have been out, which is one of the reasons why it gets cold. There's nothing to trap the heat in. The clouds are gone, so the cold just comes on down. So those 2 years, one was warm, one was cold. But to answer your question, I don't remember about the sun. So I don't know why I brought that up, Tom.
Dynamite drop in there. It was sunny in 96. I'm pretty sure it was sunny in 2013 for that wild 42-41 or whatever that game was. That was sunny. I mean, there have been a few, but it's like you're kind of scrolling through mentally in your head, and it's like you remember the 2005, I think, was sunny towards the end of the game. I think I remember sun when Santonio Holmes had the big the diving into the end zone and the Anthony Gonzalez play. But yeah, I mean, just sort of you think through it in your head. It's 2001 cloudy, 2002 cloudy, 2003 cloudy, 2004 cloudy, 2006 cloudy, 2007 raining and miserable, 2008. 2008 might have been probably cloudy. Yeah, it feels. anything other than, sun at the Ohio State Michigan game feels every bit as spiritually wrong as clouds at the Rose Bowl. It's like, no, this is not what this is supposed to be. This is supposed to be stern and gray and grim looking, and it's supposed to be. This is what this game is.
Well, and if we aren't getting that, then why are we sacrificing all these chickens?
This is Tony. I'll tell you later where your nuggets are coming from.
If there are clouds during the Rose Bowl, it's like they just stop the game. Like, now we're going to let these pass, or they won't even start the game until the clouds are passed. But Tom,
speaking of Indiana,
exactly, beautiful transition. I do want to discuss what we might see from the Ohio State running game, because we have talked about the defense, but Ryan Day this week has been talking about Dallin Hayden, Chip Trayanum getting some action in this game, and he sure seems serious about it. And if it doesn't happen this week, it's because it's another close game, which would be bad news. I wonder if, we don't know. I haven't heard anything about Travion Henderson being back. Don't know if this is going to be the week that Mayan Williams is injured. Not sure if he's on this week. Is this like a custody thing where this is Mayan Williams' week or this is Travion Henderson's week? It's something new every week. But if it's wet conditions again, does that impact how much Mayan plays? Because it doesn't seem like Ryan Day wanted to play him all that much this week. And so, that maybe then you have to play Dallin Hayden or Chip Trayanum even earlier when Ohio State is, maybe up 7-0 or 14-0. It's like, okay, let's get these guys in there.
Yeah, this is a game where it feels like they should have enough margin for error where you could, get up 10-0 or 14-0 or something, and then throw someone in there. And if they fumble it, and then you figured out, okay, you can't trust this person to have carries in a big spot or whatever it is. And these guys, the coaches have a much better sense for ball security with these guys than we do, because we have only seen very limited reps with both of them, with Hayden and Trayanum. Coaches have obviously seen them in practice a bunch, so if there are ball security issues, they will know about it long before we do. So, this is an Indiana team that, just looking at their offense, there's nothing about their offense that says this team is going to score more than 10 points or 13 points or something like that. So if Ohio State can get into the 30s, and there's really no reason to think that Ohio State can't get into the 30s, they're going to win comfortably. And, Ryan Day's not worried about covering the spread. Ryan Day just wants to win a game that he can get everyone out of there healthy and move on to the next game. That's Ryan Day's goal for this weekend. I don't see any real reason why he wouldn't. And, your margin for error being a little bigger this week, this seems like a great week to get Dallin Hayden 10, 12 carries, maybe 15 carries, get Chip Trayanum 8, 10, 12 carries, let those guys kind of carry the mail for the last 2.5 quarters of the game. And because, having Travion Henderson and having Mayan Williams healthy next week is potentially going to be more important, because you're facing a better offense where, there's a way that Maryland puts up 28, 31 points on Ohio State. It's possible. I really don't think it's possible for Indiana to do it. So your margin for error gets a little smaller next week, and then it gets a lot smaller the week after that. So this is kind of your last freebie. So take advantage of it and play some of the other guys.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Looking at the Indiana defense, of their 12 of their 13 top tacklers, Tom, are seniors.
So this is the good year for Indiana. They're going to take a step back next year, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and who knows how many of these guys will come back for a 6th year or a 5th year or whatnot, but it tells you, like, this is a very veteran defense. The one guy in there of those 13 who is 7th in tackles with 38 tackles is Deshaun McCullough, true freshman, outside linebacker, former Buckeye commit. But this guy, 38 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, 3 passes broken up, 2 quarterback hurries in this defense. He's going to be a guy that Buckeye fans should keep an eye on. See if you like him. Maybe make a pitch in the transfer portal this season, this winter. But a guy who is making an impact as a true freshman among a team of a defense of seniors. So keep an eye on him, number 0 in your playbooks. But overall, defensively, just a very veteran defense, which tells you why things are going well against the run, not so much everywhere else, though, against the pass for sure.
Well, and they have Devin Mullins and Tywan Mullen, Devin Matthews and Tywan Mullen were two guys who last year before the Indiana game were, the two defensive backs that were kind of, will they or won't they play? And then one or both of them didn't play, and that was kind of the, so this isn't going to go well for Indiana moment. And then it didn't go well for Indiana. And, last year's Indiana team reminds me a lot of this year's Indiana team, where the defense was okay, but the offense was so bad that it put the defense just constantly in bad spots, where it was like the Ohio State Iowa game, where the offense put the defense in bad spots so much, so many times that a good Iowa defense gave up 54, 55 points to Ohio State. And it was like, I don't think the defense played that badly, but they gave up more than 50 points because the offense kept putting them in bad spots. That was kind of the Indiana defense last year too. If if Indiana's offense can't move the ball and is constantly giving Ohio State the ball near midfield and can't stay on the field to let the defense rest, like this is eventually, it might take a little while for the dam to break, but eventually that's going to go poorly for Indiana. It just feels like if Ohio State takes advantage of things early and jumps, scores 14 points in the first quarter, then it's going to be a real bad day for Indiana. I think because the Michigan game, if I'm remembering correctly, it was just kind of like a slow, gradual, like put the frog in the pot of boiling water thing, where they didn't like really jump out front, and it was just kind of stayed close, and they just sort of pulled away gradually at the end. If Ohio State starts slow, you might have a game, a little bigger scoring than that, but close-ish through the first half. But yeah, if Ohio State scores early, this just feels like an Indiana team that might just kind of pack it up and move on to next week. Well,
and to make matters worse, Indiana runs a bunch of tempo. So their defense faces almost 80 plays a game, which is pretty ridiculous for an offense that doesn't score all that much. You'd think the offense would want to like dial things back until they get good enough to run some tempo, but getting Connor Bazelak back this week will help.
Well, and Northwestern ran a bunch of tempo, and then they didn't run tempo against Ohio State in, at least half the game. And, they didn't run a ton. I mean, they ran more tempo in the quarters when they had the wind than they did in the quarters where they didn't have the wind, but they still weren't, this was not like the old Chip Kelly blur offense where they're snapping the ball 8 seconds between plays or something like that. You may see a little bit of tempo, and getting Connor Bazelak back at least gives Indiana some hope that there will be some sort of functional offense. Like last year when they didn't have Michael Penix and it was down to Donovan McCauley, that was just completely a non-functional offense for the, once Jack Tuttle went down right after the first drive or the middle of the first drive last year or second drive, something like that. And then it was just like, and now there's just nothing. And I think they finished with under 100 yards of total offense or something ridiculous like that. But, Connor Bazelak is okay. He's been fine. He was, 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, something like that. 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 54.8% completion, which is like, it's not a disaster, but it's also not good. So he at least gives them a chance to be somewhat functional and maybe put up a touchdown or get to 10 points, get to 13 points, something like that. But I just don't see it getting much further than that.
And right before we give our picks, Tom, I will say that back to the time of possession, Indiana dead last in the Big Ten, averaging 24 minutes and 19 seconds of possession per game. I know we're not big on time of possession here, but that's pretty bad.
Mm-hmm. That is, yeah. It doesn't mean a lot, but also it doesn't mean anything good. So,
so I will go. I'll if you got anything else. If you don't, we can go ahead and get into our picks here. Me personally, I've already sent mine in, so this is binding and it has been written. I was not completely aware of the weather because, again, I thought the game was being played in Evanston. So I went with 45-10 because I think Ohio State, they're going to want to throw the ball. I know everybody's talking about the run, but I think they're itching to throw the ball again because you don't want CJ Stroud's arm tightening up. You want to keep that thing loose, so you got to get him throwing the ball again. And you got to get these receivers going. And I think if you're throwing the ball well enough, the running game will be just fine right behind it against Indiana. And again, it doesn't have to be super fine because nobody has really been like 6, 7, 8 yards per carry against Indiana this year. So if you're just where everybody else is, I think that's good enough to not be super concerned, or as concerned as we have been the past few weeks, even though Ohio State, after everything was said and done against Northwestern, ran the ball pretty well.
Yeah, and I have my score prediction on the site was the final score will be whatever Ohio State wants it to be to 6. And that's based on Indiana's pass defense being 107th in the nation in passing yards allowed, 98th in passing yards allowed per attempt, 123rd in the country in passing touchdowns allowed. And, I mean, if Ohio State really wanted to score 70 points, like if Ohio State really wanted to prove a point, they could absolutely do that on Saturday. It just feels like Indiana's not going to be able to sustain drives, keep Ohio State's offense off the field like Northwestern did. So what is there? And Indiana doesn't have a good passing defense. So what is there? If Ryan Day decides, I want CJ Stroud to throw 10 touchdowns today, I don't know that Indiana could keep that from happening. So realistically, he's not. Realistically, he's probably he would like CJ Stroud to have a nice day, I'm sure, statistically, and then get him off the field and have him be healthy for games that matter more than this in the future. So I landed on 56-6 Ohio State, but, I was basing that on a, clear, dry day. So if you want to shave one touchdown off there, that's fine. But, something in that range where 49-6, 56-6, something in that neighborhood feels about right for this game.
Yeah, I will be interested to see if Jordan Hancock plays. They didn't play him last week because of the conditions. I don't know if these conditions will be good enough to get him out there. I do think you're going to want a bunch of corners. Just looking at Connor Bazelak, like he throws the ball. He's had games of 55 attempts, 52, 66. His last 4 games have been 44, 49, 42, and 42. Now these are a bunch of quick throws. He's averaged 4.2 yards per attempt in the game against Cincinnati, 4.1 against Michigan, 5.1 against Nebraska. So a lot of quick stuff where tackling will be at a premium for the secondary, but I think they've done pretty well at that, so wouldn't be too concerned there. Tom, anything else before we get out of here?
No, just looking forward to another lovely day in Ohio Stadium, and I just recorded the morning show for Saturday morning and said that the Michigan game was in 14 days, and went, that can't possibly be right. How are we already almost done with another football season? We spend 12 months talking about college football, and then the season goes by, and it's like, the Notre Dame game was like 3 weeks ago, wasn't it? How is this even possible?
It is amazing. It's the fastest time of the year, and you go from summer to winter, and you miss the entire fall, basically. It just goes by in a blink. But we're still here now. Let's live in the present. Let's live in the moment. Tom, what's that forecast? Has the forecast for Michigan changed at all? Is it still 48 and cloudy from 10 minutes ago?
Just pulling it up now, says 72 and sunny, but that might be Columbus, Georgia, and not Columbus, Ohio. So we'll have to, Tony, who's to say? It's possible that it changed 20-something degrees. I don't know.
Well, and it is Ohio, so we shall hope. Anyway, that will do it for us today. I want to thank you all for joining us. Always look for us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Become a member. Say hello to us on the message board where we are there chatting with a whole bunch of other Buckeye fans as well. Find us on YouTube at Buckeye Huddle, at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't. Go ahead and hit the bell to be notified if you haven't. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up if you haven't. And we appreciate those of you who have done all of those things very, very much. So thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you guys later.